Hello and welcome back to another episode of Getting Started with Dwarf Fortress. Here with me, the Moocher Mouse. So last episode I said we were going to do a jump cut and come back to build a farm. Turned out to be a really long jump, mainly because I forgot and then edited it together and also didn't notice. So now we're in the new episode, but that actually makes more sense. So from this point on, what I was clarifying in the last episode is that I'm going to talk less about the controls, because that is something you can mostly figure out on your own. I mean, it is very clearly indicated here what every letter does, and you know how to move around, you know how to go up and down. We've talked about these very basic controls. And you can figure out how to dig out things. Okay, ramp up, stairs down, everything like that. But what's, I think, more important and what makes Dwarf Fortress hard here is that there is no tutorial. There's nothing to tell you that you need to build this, otherwise X is going to happen, right? You need to have so-and-so in place, otherwise this ain't not going to work, and your dwarfs are going to get mad, and you're going to die. So that's sort of what I'm hoping to get out of this next part of the tutorial, is for each episode we're going to be talking a little bit about a different industry, getting set up some basic things that you will need, hopefully to push new players over that first sort of hurdle where you get into all the other things that's going to kill you and destroy your fort, but we have less control over them, like goblin sieges, werebeasts, and such. But let's manage our dwarfs to a point where they don't kill each other, okay? So to get started with that, we are here in the first episode. We're going to look at food and food industry. Setting up farms, moving the animals underground, setting up a brewery, or a still is what it's called actually, and the various workshops that will produce food, as well as stockpiles to store the food. So for this purpose, I have set up, dug out this area over here, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening here, or what we're going to be putting into here. So firstly, I'm going to go up to the surface again to look at our dwarfs, and we can see here we have our dwarfs sitting around here, along with some animals. Pool of pig blood. Yeah, as some of you might remember that the pig had a little accident here earlier. He seems to be okay. I can't see him right now, but there's not a dead pig there, so that's a plus. Now what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to build a couple of things down here. We're going to assign some areas, we're going to set up some farms, etc. But one of the first things we would like to do is that we have a bunch of stuff lying around up here. We brought some food, we brought some drinks, and we would like them to be not out in the open for anyone to steal. Because there are things that could steal them. There are... Let's check out the unit list here. Yeah, right now there's some ravens and stuff here. I don't believe ravens will steal things. But if there were kias here, which are another type of bird, they're the type of animal that would like, I'm going to steal your shit. They're going to take your stuff. And we would like to avoid that. So, first things first, we will set up a couple of areas for the animals. And then we will set up some stockpiles. So to move animals, first of all, we need to create what's called a zone. And we do that by hitting I, which is the button up here. And then we have this X here. And we box select what we need, so I'm going to make a zone in here. This has created a zone. Now, hovering over it here, immediately after creation, we have interactions with this zone. If you hit escape, it goes away. By hitting I again, we get into zone creation, and then by moving over a zone, you can see we get interactions for it. So now we can tell this zone what it's supposed to be. Now I want this to be a pen or a pasture, so I hit N, and then by hitting Shift N or capital N, then I can set pen and pasture information. And this takes me to a list of all the animals. So then I can use the plus and the minus key on my numpad to go up and down. And then I can see all the animals that I have. Now I think I would like this room to be for the pigs. So we're going to put the sow and the boar in here. Now what's going to happen is that some dwarfs that are idle and not doing anything are going to get that job to move the pigs in here, and they're going to sort of escort the pigs into the room. So we go back out, and I'm going to hit I again and go down into the corner over here. I'm going to take this entire room, make that another pen or pasture, capital N to assign animals, and then I am going to assign all the turkeys to this room. So if we unpause now, we're going to see some dwarves start hauling some animals in here, hopefully. No, we're going to save. So we're going to have a little jump cut here, because saving takes forever. There we go, saving successfully complete. We can see the dwarves are now hauling animals down here. So they're going to be putting them into these rooms. The animals are happily just going to stay there. Sometimes we put a door in. Technically, you don't need it. The animals will not move this or go out of the zone. And we're going to let them keep on doing that. And while they're doing that, we're going to go upstairs. And we're going to make a zone up here as well. Make this one a little bit larger. So we're going to make this one. And I'm going to allocate this as a pen or a pasture as well. And hit N. And then I'm going to do some filtering, which we get from dfhack. So I'm going to hold shift and then I'm going to hit G to filter away currently non-grazing animals. So now I get, these are the animals that are the grazing kind, because I filtered away the non-grazing kind. And just to clarify, that grazing means that they need grass. So these are types of animals that if you put them in a cave underground where there's no grass, they're going to starve to death. The pigs don't do that. The turkeys don't do that either. They can just happily stay underground forever. And we could also, if we had already pastured some and we wanted to see only non-pasteurized animals, we could hit Shift P as well. And that would take away anyone who's already in the pasture. So capital G, capital P would show us only animals that need to graze who are currently not assigned to a pasture. So we're just going to assign all of these 4 here. Here we can also see that our horses are both male, so we don't have a breeding pair of horses, but that's fine. We'll just keep them around and hopefully we can buy a mare later. So we're going to hit escape. And they're going to be allocated to just stay in this zone. So here they can graze, they can eat grass and live happily. So we're going to go down here and we're going to pause again. Because we need to set up a few construction jobs and other things to make things happen down here. One of the most important parts you need to get set up early is the production of alcohol. If we hit the letter Z, we get the sort of overview. What would it be called over here? The status. Yeah, the status overview. And here it gives us some info about our fort. It says we have 7 people or 7 dwarfs living here. Their breakdown of their professions. How many other animals there are nearby. That's all the fish and stuff like that. And it gives us our food stores. How much meat, fish, plant matter, seeds, drink, and other we have. And you see that there's a question mark behind this, and that means that we don't have an accurate count of it yet. But we'll get into how we get an accurate count of these later on. But getting our drinks and our foods up is very important, because if we don't have drinks and we don't have food, then we're going to hit tantruming dwarves pretty soon. They're going to be mad that they can't get a drink, they're going to be mad that they can't eat, etc. So we need to get that taken care of. So one of the first workshops you should probably build is the still. And to set up the still, we hit B for build, and then we hit W for workshops, and then we get a list of workshops. So here we can see we have various workshops. We can use the plus and the minus key to go up and down in this list. Or if you know the hotkey for what you need to build, you can just hit that. For the still, it's going to be L. You can see that here. And then we get a little 3x3 box. Now what's important to note about workshops is that you see how all of these X's, when I'm not hovering over them, they are a bright green. Then there's one here that's a little more dull green. Pay attention to this dull green one when you place a workshop, because this is an impassable tile now. So when I build it, nothing's going to be able to walk through that tile. Right here, that's not really important, but if, say, all of these were X's, or the sort of the darker X, and we were to place it like over here, then you would be blocking off this entry here. So that's just something to keep in mind when you place workshops. But I'm going to put the still in here. There's no reason for me to have a larger space around them here. I just did it sort of because I wanted to. You can build however you want. The aesthetic is all up to you. I'm just doing something I felt like doing. So I have ordered a still here now. If I hit Q, I can see what it's waiting for. It needs brewing or plant gathering to be able to build this, and then it's going to need architecture to actually build. And I have room here for another one, because eventually you will need probably two to keep up with the production and when you have a lot of dwarfs. So then follow up on that, we have now created a place where they will build a still, and I would like to have a place nearby where they store alcohol. So we're gonna put a stockpile in this area for storing alcohol. And the way we do that is we're gonna hit P for stockpile. You can see that in the menu up here. And then I'm gonna hit F for food, because this is primarily a food stockpile, but we don't want actual food in here. So we have to customize it once we've built it. But using the preset is normally a good idea to get close to what you want, because that decides a little bit about the types of storage units that will go in here. So just to illustrate, if I hit F now, like for food, and I make a food stockpile, hit escape, and then I hit Q to inspect it. Now it says up here, food stockpile number 1, so that is also a thing. It names the stockpile. You can hit Control N to rename it to whatever you want. But you can see there has already told me that this place can have max barrels, 56. And that's all the squares that are in there. There's 56 squares in this stockpile. So it has automatically selected that this will hold 56 barrels. That is because food can be stored in barrels. Now if I do P and S like for stone, and we make a stone stockpile, hit Q to inspect that, you will see it does no barrels, no bins. So even though you could technically place any stockpile, customize it to hold whatever item you want, you then also have to customize max barrels, max bins, and you sort of get that a little bit automatically by choosing at least the correct group of items initially. So to make this go away now, I'm going to hit P, I'm going to hit X, and that's remove designation. I'm going to tell these stockpiles to just go away. Now I'm going to hit F again, go all the way over here, make a big stockpile. You might be thinking that is a very large stockpile for barrels of beer or wine or ale or just drinks. And yeah, or you might actually not, because maybe you have no idea how much storage space you need. But this is a it's a fairly okay size stockpile for drinks. It's not going to fill up super quickly, but you could eventually fill it up if you have enough brewing going on. But we can automate the production a little bit so that it will start and stop within certain set points using something called DFHack's workflow. So we're going to look at that once everything here gets built. But I'm thinking that this episode is going to be just sort of setting up, talking about what we're making, and then I'm going to let it all build up, and then we'll come back and look at the actual workflow setup and what we want the different things to do. So, now that we have a workshop set up for, or being built, not set up, for making alcohol, and we have a stockpile that can store food, I said we don't want all food in here, so we're going to have to customize this stockpile a little bit. And we do that, as said, by going escape out until the menu, and then we hit Q to inspect. And then we hover over this. We could rename this. We could say this is the drinks stockpile. And then we can hit S to change settings. And this is a lot of information for new players, but still, it's actually not that hard. We just go over here and we say block all. Nothing can be in here. And we go down to the list where it says drink, plant, drink, animal. This basically means drinks that are made from plant matter and drinks that are made from animal matter. And that is basically mead, which is made from honey. So, we just go down here and we hit permit P on both of these. And now we have a stockpile that would only allow drink items. So once we unpause and the dwarves get around to it, they will start hauling our barrels of drink down here. Now just to quickly set that up, so we can stop talking about stockpiles for a little bit, we're going to set up a food stockpile over here as well. And we're going to do the opposite. We're going to say forbid drinks, and also, not that, enable. Forbid drinks, and also seeds. We don't want seeds in there. So that's going to make, this is going to be the drink stockpile. This is going to be the food stockpile. And now we have to actually type it. Food stockpile. That's where food is going to be stored. Meats, prepared or not, prepared foods. Well, we can also see that by going into settings. See, there's a U down here that says this will allow prepared foods. But this will essentially store anything we gather from our farms when we start those. It will hold any meat from butchered creatures. It will hold eggs from the turkeys if they start laying eggs, or when they start laying eggs. Plant matter that we gather, as I said, outside. And also fish, not raw fish, but prepared or what would you call it? Dissected fish, filleted fish, and so on will be stored in here. So for the actual workshops that make all these things, that would be the butcher, the fishery, and then you would need the kitchen to turn raw ingredients into prepared food. So we can look at that, and we can hit B, W for workshops. And then we see here we have a couple of things. We have the butcher shop. We want to construct that. Once again, paying attention to where we have the dark X's, we will see that there's a dark X here, and there's two here. So you might think, oh, that's going to block this. We're not going to be able to pass through it. Well, no, not really, because they can move diagonally. That means a dwarf can come in here, and he can go diagonally across here into the workshop, and he can go diagonally up here into the stockpile. So that does not actually block it. Only if you have the full 3 squares on the side, you're going to block it. So we're going to put that in here, and it asks me what do I want to make it out of. Can we get this a little bit bigger? There we go. What do you want to use to make this? The only thing we have now are wood. We could dig down, but let's not bother with that right now. So we'll just say we'll make it out of wood. We would also like a fishery, because as we see in the river here, actually, there are fish. So we could take advantage of that and have dwarfs go out and fish. Give us a source of food. We place the fishery, make that out of the wood. And then we can create the kitchen as well. And put it there. Now we're not going to get into the kitchen just yet. But it's a good thing to place early because some tasks will happen automatically. Like when you, for instance, butcher an animal. You get meats. You get skin. That will be taken to, if you have a tanner set up, that will go there. Which makes me think we should also get a tanner set up, but we'll get around to that. But there will also be fat from that animal, and that can be turned into tallow, which can later be used for soap industry. But if you don't have a kitchen, that's not going to automatically happen, so then the fat's just going to go to waste, and it's going to be stored in the refuse stockpile, which is basically the dump, where you throw bones and carcasses and everything like that. So there we have that built. And the other things we want to build in here, feeling this episode is drawing out a little bit, but we want to build farms. So I'm going to do B to build. And farm is not a workshop. It's actually out in the first list here. It's under P for farm plot. So we hit P. And this is not a box select. This is one of the weird ones that's not actually a box select. And this is similar to our navigation in the world generation, where we had the local screen. We could go U, M, K, and H to go left, right, and up and down. Here we use U, M, K, and H to expand this. So I normally build, you can build them how big or small however you want, but I normally build 5x5. And I place them like this. And also, I build a lot of them. Some more experienced Dwarf Fortress players might think, that's a lot of farms. It's going to be a while before you need all these farms. But there's a good reason for it. Because even though I don't use them initially, they're easy to place. It doesn't take long for me to place. The farmer's just going to come around and do this. And farms have to be placed on dirt. On a soil floor. Like right now, these are flashing because they haven't been built yet, but once we have placed them on the dirt floor, and this is where they can be built. Later on, this could become more difficult, because what happens is that when you dig down, there are caves. And once you break into a cave, that cave is filled with cave moss, small mushrooms, growths that grow in the caves. And when you break into the cave, they spread. They cause stuff to grow underground because you have gained access to underground spores that can grow in the dirt that we don't have access to from above ground. And they're going to spread out here, and they could potentially block the placement of your farm, which means you will have to build maybe a road or something there first, and then pave it, and then remove the road to gain access to the soil again. So that makes it more cumbersome to build. So that's why I build a lot of farms in the beginning. Quickly, because this is drawing out a little bit on us, we're going to place another food stockpile over here, because you remember in this one here in the center we have only drinks. Over here we have everything but drinks and seed. So I'm going to place another food stockpile over here, and this one, to block everything, will hold only seeds. So it's nearby the farms where they actually need the seed, and they can start filling out all of this. So this was the building then of our farm floor, where we have set up a few things. I'm thinking I'm going to be digging out another workshop for the actual tanner and the tannery, because that is nice for us to have, that once we immediately start butchering, we have a place where we can immediately tan hides to save them for later. But that's going to happen in between episodes, so I'm just going to set up that, build the tanner's workshop, probably around here or somewhere, so that can happen automatically for us, and we'll have that later when we get into leatherworking industry. But I'm going to let this build up, and then we're going to go and look at automatic setup of things, and see you in the next one.